So like one single person, we could make a sperm and an egg cell from them and then make a baby out of it. So you could be the sole parent of your child, or same thing with like 4 or 8 different parents for a child, or same-sex parents for a child, because we can make sperm and eggs from any cell in your body, which is nuts. But I basically got this idea because I had to read an article about it for an interview that I had for genetic counseling school, where we had to read the article and then we discussed it in the interview, because these interviews are extremely intense, and it's like a really competitive field, and I just thought this was a super cool topic, so I'm going to talk about it today and some of the crazy things that go along with it, and I'd love to hear about your thoughts on it as well after I talk about it. But to kind of set us up for this, I'm going to talk about meiosis and how babies are made. So yeah, to kind of set us up for this. So essentially talking about how babies are normally made, and then we will talk about IVG after that. I don't know if I've discussed this before. I feel like I have. I don't know. But let's get started. And I'm very festive. I'm wearing my DNA ring today because I love genetics and DNA. Okay, so let's start by talking about meiosis and how you form a baby. Okay, so up here in this corner, I've got 2 normal parents. Here I drew a stereotypical man and woman. I realized that gender identity is a large construct, but we're talking about a heterosexual man and woman partnership. Okay, so here we have what are called germ cells. So these are cells in like your ovaries and testes, I guess, any gonads that can give rise to sperm or egg cells. And each of these cells, just like any cell in your body, every single cell in your body, generally has 46 chromosomes in normal humans. There are chromosomal conditions that we'll talk about, but normally each of the cells in your body has 46 chromosomes. And this is made up of 2 different ones of each of 23 different chromosomes. The way I said that was way too complicated, but you have 23 unique pairs of chromosomes, and you have 2 of each of those. 23 times 2 is 46. And you received 1 of each from your mother and 1 of each from your father. So that makes 2 of each one, right? So what we're showing here, obviously I did not draw 46 chromosomes, but you can imagine that these have 46 chromosomes in them, but I basically just showed 2 different chromosomes, blue and like orange or whatever this color is, I don't know. And you can see that each cell from the man and the woman has 2 of each of those chromosomes, 1 from the mother, 1 from the father. Okay, so then when it comes to making gametes, so egg and sperm, when I say gametes, I'm talking about egg cells and sperm cells. What happens is meiosis, where these cells will divide, and each of the resulting cells from that will get 1 of each chromosome. So you can see that each of these gametes got 1 blue one and 1 orange one from each of the parents' germ cells. Okay, so these are like, I guess these would be eggs and these would be sperm, and they each have 23 chromosomes because they have 1 of each pair of chromosome, right? 1 chromosome 1, 1 chromosome 2, 1 chromosome 3, and it could be any combination of these. So like, I know maybe I should have done 4 different colors, but I feel like that's confusing. But basically, like, this one could have this blue one and this orange one, and this one could have that blue brings up what we're going to talk about later, is the fact that this cell is what you would call a pluripotent stem cell. Maybe you've heard of stem cells before, but essentially what a pluripotent stem cell is a cell that has the ability to become any cell, any type of cell. And obviously that's pretty important because this is just one cell, and it's going to become a child that has a brain, it has skin cells, liver cells, lung cells, blood cells, eyeball cells, every kind of cell, but it just starts as one. So this cell needs to be able to become any kind of cell, and that's why it's called a pluripotent stem cell. Whereas in the baby, like, your skin cells are just skin cells. They can't become anything else. They are no longer pluripotent stem cells. But that is what we're going to be talking about later. And this is just kind of a little aside about Down syndrome or any other chromosomal abnormality and how that happens. So maybe you've heard of Down syndrome called trisomy 21, which basically means 3 of the 21st chromosome. And how that happens, I guess here we're showing it happening in the dad. It actually typically happens in the mom, but that's a different story for a different time. But basically when this step happens, so theoretically every egg and sperm gets one of each chromosome, but sometimes what can happen is that it could get the normal one orange one, but it got 2 blue ones on accident. And that means that, like, when this cell divided, it made this cell with 2 blue and 1 orange, and it also made a cell that I didn't draw that has the normal 1 orange, but it has no blue ones, right? You can imagine that when it separates, it just separated incorrectly, and these blue ones didn't separate. And so when this cell, like, I guess it's a sperm, combines with a normal egg, right? These 2 cells are going to combine. We're going to get this zygote that has the normal 2 orange ones, but it has 3 blue ones, because 2 from dad and 1 from mom, so now it has 3. And so this cell has 47 chromosomes instead of 46. And in the case of Down syndrome, the chromosome that happened to is chromosome number 21. And the reason you see that is because chromosome 21 is the smallest one in your body. And so if you get 3 of it, it has the least impact of any of the chromosomes. And that's why you can get a child with Down syndrome that's healthy and happy and lives an incredible life, because the 21st chromosome is the smallest, whereas this can happen to any chromosome. It's just that the ones that are larger, if you get 3 of them, or you get none of them, or 1 of them, it's not going to be compatible with life. It's probably going to lead to a very early miscarriage, because it's just not something that is livable, where the child could survive. And so that's why you see Down syndrome with chromosome 21 being the extra one, but you can sometimes see chromosome trisomy 18 or trisomy 13, but definitely less common. But yeah, basically just saying this issue can happen with any chromosome. It's just that they're probably going to result in early miscarriages, whereas Down syndrome babies can survive. Okay, so that's just a little aside. But this here is basically just showing the same thing for sex chromosomes. So you have 22 pairs of autosomes, like body chromosomes, I guess, that are the same between men and women. We each have 2. But then you have 1 sex chromosome, or 1 pair of sex chromosome. So 22 times 2 is 44, and then the 2 sex chromosomes that you have makes 46, right? Okay, so women have 2 X chromosomes, and men have an X and females genetically. And so when this same thing happens, the gametes produced by the woman's germ cell will all get an X chromosome, because that's all she has. She just has X. The different gametes will get different X chromosomes. Like, it could get either one from her, but they'll all get an X. Whereas the male's germ cell is going to make some sperm that have a Y and some that have an X. And so if the male's X combines with the female's X, you get a female with two X's. Whereas if the male passes on that Y chromosome, you're going to get a boy that has X and Y. So this is just basically showing how sex is inherited. 100% of the time the female's going to give an X, and 50% of the time the male will give an X as well, or 50% it gives the Y. And that's how you get boys and girls. But just something important to note is that you have to think of these as being combined, right? Like, I drew this very simply, but these X's and Y's are part of that 46. I just didn't draw 46 here, and I'm just separating the two processes of autosomes and sex chromosomes, but they're combined. They're all in the same cell, and they're making gametes, eggs or sperm, that have 22 chromosomes and then a sex chromosome. So 23, like we've got here. Okay, does that make sense? Alright, so that's how babies are made. That's how meiosis happens and all of that. And then now we are going to talk about the fun part, which is in vitro gametogenesis, and how you can make a baby with just one parent or with more than two parents, which is crazy. Alright, so I did draw something on the paper. I didn't really know how to draw everything, so I'm just going to be explaining it, but I will also use this as my visual aid, okay? Okay, so in vitro gametogenesis is where we can essentially take, I say we, I'm not doing this. I feel like I always say that, like, oh, we say this, we do this. It's not me, you guys. I'm referring to we as scientists. Okay. But so what they can do is take any cell from your body, any cell, a skin cell, a blood cell, anything, and make it become a sperm or egg, like what we just talked about, okay? So how do they do that? It's going back to what I talked about with pluripotent stem cells, which, if you remember, are the cells from zygotes or embryos that have the ability to become any type of cell. So essentially, like, think about it. If you've got the zygote, it's one cell. If it's becoming a woman or a female, some of those cells are gonna turn into egg cells because she's gonna have eggs. And if it's a man, some of those cells are gonna turn into sperm cells because it's a man, right? So what they do is they take cells, any cell from your body, and they go through a process that makes it an induced pluripotent stem cell. So they're essentially reverting that cell back to a pluripotent stem cell, meaning that now it can become any type of cell. So I don't actually know exactly how they do that, like how they make it an induced pluripotent stem cell. I'd have to do a little bit more research on it, but I know that they do that with a cell from your body, and then after making it into an induced pluripotent stem cell, then they will coerce it to become a sperm or an egg. So coerce those cells to then become a sperm or an egg cell, and then once they make a sperm and an egg cell from the cells in your body, you can make a baby, you can make a zygote, and then you can implant it back into a female or a child-bearing individual to make a baby. And so what this means is, first of all, I think things that this is really great for are things like if a woman is infertile, is infertile, any infertility. Like a heterosexual couple could make a baby by using their blood or their skin. You know, you could take the skin or blood from the woman and from the man and induce them to become sperm and egg and then make a baby. You could also do this if the man or woman is too old to be of childbearing age. So you could potentially have 80-year-old men or women that we make sperm and egg cells from and then implant it into a surrogate or even into the woman to make a baby. So that's another possibility. But some of the more like radical possibilities that aren't really possibilities yet are things like making a child from a homosexual couple, a same-sex couple. So you could take skin cells or blood cells again from two women and coerce one of them to become eggs and coerce the other to become sperm, because it's a pluripotent stem cell, it can become anything, and then make a baby out of it. You can also do the same with two men. So there are a lot of ethical issues that arise because of that, because like, I mean, the article I was talking about, which I don't really agree with some of these, but it was talking about, well, we don't want 80-year-olds having children, like they're gonna be dead by the time their children are in school, which to me, I'm like, with in vitro fertilization, like we already have the ability to have children at an older age or at an, a non-traditional time. So I don't think that really, like, it still would be up to the discretion of the parents. I don't really agree with like that ethical issue. And then on the topic of same-sex couples, the article was talking about how like potentially the same-sex couples that don't do this, so same-sex couples that have adopted children or children that are only biologically related to one of them would be like looked down upon because their child isn't biologically them, which again, like maybe I agree with that, but I feel like we already have that. Like we already have heterosexual couples that choose to adopt or use a sperm donor, and it's like, do we look down on them because they don't have children that are biologically theirs? Maybe, but like that's already an issue. I don't think it's really a reason to not go through with this. Yeah, but I don't know. Let me know what you guys think. I think this is cool because it's more of like an ethical genetics issue that can be topic of discussion. But some of the crazy things we're going to talk about genetically are having a one-parent child or a multi-parent child, like having a child that has more than two parents. Okay, so one-parent child, this is wild. So essentially having a baby that is just you. It would be 100% you. It would not actually be a clone, but it would be 100% you. And so the way that that works, I've drawn like a little woman up there. I don't know. But okay. So I'm gonna try to explain this. I was trying to explain it the other night to my brother and his girlfriend, and I don't think I did the best job. I don't think they understood it, but I'm gonna try. Okay. So, this female, I should have drawn like a germ cell for her. But so she's got these two gametes, right? That's what we're going to create. So like from her cells, we made a sperm and we made an egg, right? So this female, like if we're looking at this one, so in the female over here, she has two of each chromosome, right? She got one of them from her father and one of them from her mother, correct? So one of each of her chromosomes came from her mother and one of each came from her father. And so when we take like her skin or blood or whatever those cells is going to have one of each chromosome from her mother and one of each from her father. Okay? So then when we make the gametes, they're going to split up. Okay? And some of them are going to get like the blue chromosome from her mother, right? And maybe the orange chromosome from her father. We don't know. It's gonna be like 50-50, right? So then when we make the zygote out of two of those germ cells, it's not going to be that her gametes have perfectly all of the chromosomes from her mother combining with a gamete that has all of the chromosomes from her father. It's not going to be like that, like it was in creating her. It's going to be a random mix. Like, maybe hypothetically, theoretically, one of the gametes is going to get all of the chromosomes from her father, and another gamete is going to get all of the chromosomes from her father. So when they combine, the baby would be like a clone of the individual's father. That's not going to happen, but it's just showing that the baby, the zygote, could have both blue ones from its grandfather, like from the original female's father, and then it could have both orange ones from the mother, and then it could have one of each, right? So it's not going to get the exact same DNA makeup as its like biological mother, if you will. This is really hard to talk about because it's really complicated with all of the like mother and father. But so the baby, all of the DNA it gets is going to be from its mother, but it's not going to be the exact same DNA makeup as she has. Very, very complicated. It's going to be like more or less related to her parents. Okay, so I think you could kind of explain this like it being like her sibling in a way. Like it would still theoretically be 50% related to her mother and father, but not the exact same makeup as the mom. It's very, very confusing. But one thing to think about here, I drew a little girl down here because the one caveat, we can make females, the cells from females turn into eggs or sperm, but they will only ever have X chromosomes because a female has 2 X chromosomes in every cell of her body, and so every gamete we make will only ever have an X and never a Y. And so a one-parent child coming from a female will always be a female. That is, however, not true if the one parent is a male, because we can do that, but it could potentially be a male because a male has X and Y. Crazy, right? Crazy. But just for simplicity, I was like talking about a female just so I could, use pronouns and make it easy. But yeah, the issue with this, one of the big issues is, well, first of all, just a lack of genetic variation. You create a lot of genetic variation by coming together with an unrelated spouse and having a child. That creates variation, and if this child is only getting DNA from the mom, we're losing a lot of variation. Like if everyone were to do that. Also, So over here, we talked about from the woman making a sperm and an egg. So what we're gonna do from these 4 individuals, I just drew out like a 4-parent child, but it can be, we'll talk about it. So we're gonna make gametes from all of them. We're going to make, say like a sperm and an egg and a sperm and an egg, right? And then from these 2 parents, from these gametes, we're gonna make a zygote. So this is 1 baby, 1 zygote. Not a baby, it's a zygote, 1 cell embryo, like in a lab. And then over here, we're gonna do the same thing. We've got an egg and a sperm, and we're going to make a zygote, right? So we've got 2 just like cells in a lab. And what we're going to do, this is nuts. Okay, so these are 50% each parent. It's just like normal children, right? Like 50% each parent. So now we're gonna take cells from this zygote and do the same thing. We're gonna make like a sperm out of this zygote and an egg out of that zygote. Okay? And then we're going to use those to make another zygote and our baby. So essentially, like, right, this zygote is half each of these parents, and this one is half each of these parents. So when we make a gamete from each one and then make a baby, the baby is now 25% each of these parents. But biologically, it is their grandchild, right? Like, this is the child of these parents, and this is the child of these parents. So this child is like the child of these 2 zygotes and the grandchild of these 4 people. So these 4 people, in a matter of, 9 months, made their grandchild. But it is biologically related to all of them. So you could make a baby if you are in like a polyamorous relationship, potentially make a baby that is all of you. Yeah, crazy. Which essentially is kind of what you're doing when like your grandparents, which is crazy. That like my 4 grandparents are kind of like all my parents. Like all 4 of them. That's great. That's what this would be. So yeah, ridiculous. But you can do it with like any combination of parents. If you wanted to do it with 3 people, what would happen is like one person would make a zygote and the 2 others would make a zygote, and then the baby would be like 25% each of these parents, but 50% this parent, is how you do it for any combination of like an odd number of parents. And then you could just keep doing this if you have an even number. Yeah. Like if you had 6 parents, you could, I guess, what would you do? No, I guess like with 8, you would do this, but then you'd do it again, and then do it again to get your baby. So they would be like great grandparents. Ridiculous. That's so crazy. But yeah, so I'll just finish this off by saying that this is not available in humans, okay? Like, I think there's doctors in other countries, like Japan or something, I don't remember, that have, like, really recently successfully done this in mice, where they made a baby mouse that was, from IVG, but we have not done this in humans, okay? Don't worry. So, like, it's not like this is something you can just go do right now. Don't think that. But I don't know, who knows, maybe it'll be available at some point, and it's kind of crazy to think about. Like, there are a lot of good things with it that, like if you're infertile or if you're a same-sex couple, you could have children like that. That's incredible. Whereas at the same time, like, it opens a lot of cans of worms with like making gametogenesis and how babies are made, and also about IVG. Please let me know your thoughts, because like I think this is so cool. So yeah,